A big sinkhole has really done a number on a neighborhood in Allentown. It opened this morning in the 300 block of North 10th Street.
More than a dozen homes have been evacuated there. Dozens of graves could be next. Will Lewis and Jaccii Farris are covering the story for us tonight. Let's start with Jaccii. Jaccii, a water main break is believed to be the culprit, right?
Well, preliminarily, that is what we're hearing. Fire officials are also saying that some of these homes may have to be torn down. One thing is for sure, it's going to be a long night here on 10th Street as crews try to shore up the sinkhole and make things safe. Meantime, residents are spending the night elsewhere, worried about what could happen.
3 of the homes have major shifting issues that you can physically see shifting. You can see the doors don't open, the cracks in the walls, and in the foundation. So those are the 3 no-go homes right now.
The fear in the minds of several North 10th Street residents is that the sinkhole will cost them their homes. Shortly after the sinkhole swallowed up this sidewalk, residents say they heard cracking noises. Dwayne Glover woke up to no water pressure and discovered his basement was flooded.
As I'm walking back towards the washer and dryer, my foot went through the concrete floor of the basement.
Glover says when he tried to get out of his house, it had shifted, so he had to kick a door to get outside. J.R. Rosado and his family gathered up their belongings quickly and got out, but had to leave part of their family behind.
We're just looking for a place for our pets because we have no place for them now.
City, fire, PPL, and UGI crews spent the day assessing the sinkhole's reach. Sections of the street were cut out. Right now, officials say it appears that a water main break may be the culprit, but it's too early to tell for certain. Long steel pipes were brought in to reinforce the sinkhole to keep it from collapsing on crews who are examining the damage. The water has been shut off. UGI is working on stabilizing gas lines. Glover says he can't believe what's happening.
How you have things of memory as far as in your house, like, if it was a fire, if you lost it, I'm just thankful that, I'm all right and my kids are all right, because that could have happened when we were sleeping,
10th Street has been blocked off all day while crews were hard at work making for sort of a bottleneck down in this area. Officials say it may be a while before they know exactly how large this sinkhole is or what the fate will be for the homes that are in front of the sinkhole. But Rob and Wendy, I have to tell you, it does not look good for at least 3 of the homes. Live in Allentown, Jaccii Farris, 69 News.
All right. Thank you, Jaccii.
Thanks, Jaccii. That's the situation with the homes, but there is even more at stake here.
The sinkhole is threatening 54 grave sites at the Union and West End Cemetery. WFMZ's Will Lewis is joining us now with that part of the story. Will.
Well, that's right, Wendy and Rob. That sinkhole is running east to west, so while it is going towards the homes, it is also going towards the cemetery. Now, Lehigh County Coroner Scott Grimm tells me his department is in the wait-and-see mode. He says many of those graves date back to the mid-1800s. As workers continue to dig up more macadam to see how deep the sinkhole is on 10th Street, 54 graves sit dangerously close to the expanding crater.
Right now, it's more or less waiting to see what happens once the sinkhole continues to expand into the cemetery.
Some of the people buried here are veterans from the Civil War. Other headstones are so old that there is no visible name or date on them. Lehigh County Coroner Scott Grimm says many of the deceased were born in the mid-1800s. So far, he says it's unsure how the coroner's office will proceed.
Could be very difficult because, one, the ground's still unsettled, it's unsecure. Some of these people have been buried there for 100+ years, so we're working with those conditions as well.
Earlier in the day, Judge Brian Johnson toured the grounds and signed a court order to move the graves if and when it's needed. Now, that court order was signed, and once again, it is just a precaution. But Grimm tells us, depending on what they find later on tonight as they keep working on that sinkhole, more than those 54 graves could have to be removed. Rob and Wendy.
All right, Will Lewis reporting. Thank you, Will. The Lehigh Valley has had to deal with multiple sinkholes this year, and geologists say they're not surprised. Experts say sinkholes can be formed in 2 ways. The first happens when an underground water pipe bursts, which appears to be what happened today. But it's not clear if the water main break caused today's sinkhole or if the sinkhole caused the break. Sinkholes can also be formed when limestone erodes underground.
Wherever you have the limestone, it's going to dissolve, forming the caves underground and then eventually the sinkhole. So it's one of those natural hazards that you have to live with.
Sweeney says limestone is a very common rock in the Allentown area, and we're going to have continuing coverage of today's massive sinkhole coming up on 69 News at 6 and then again at 10.
Officials are investigating what sparked. Sinkholes are nothing new to the Lehigh Valley, but this one is something else. A sinkhole carved out a chunk of Allentown this morning, forcing dozens of people out of their homes and sending repair crews scrambling. Good evening once again. I'm Rob Vaughn.
And I'm Wendy Davis. The sinkhole has swallowed a portion of North 10th Street. Residents who have been forced out of their homes are now worried there's no going back.
WFMZ's Jaccii Farris begins our coverage for us. She is live at the scene with more now. Jaccii?
Well, guys, I have to tell you that I can barely hear you, but I know one thing. It's going to be a very long night here on 10th Street. Residents are going to have to spend the night elsewhere while crews try to get to the bottom of exactly what happened here. You can see behind me, this is a UGI crew. What they're doing is they're loading up a case that they put into one of the trenches that they dug today to try to figure out exactly how big this sinkhole is. This trench would protect anyone who would go into the trench from having the sinkhole or the trench itself collapse around them. Officials say it's going to be a long time before they figure out exactly how big this hole is, what exactly is going to happen to the homes.
I'm always worried about this place. I mean, I worried ever since that gas explosion on 13th Street. I worry about them around here. You never know what happens day after day.
It was a scary way to start the day for some residents on Allentown's North 10th Street. A sinkhole swallowed up this sidewalk. Right now, officials believe a water main break is the culprit, whose damage may extend under several homes in the 300 block. Dwayne Glover says he woke up to a flooded basement.
As I'm walking back towards the washer and dryer, my foot went through the concrete floor of the basement.
Glover says he had to kick a door down to get out as the homes started to shift. Huge cracks are now covering many of their interior walls. County engineers are inspecting the homes, but it doesn't look good for at least 3 of them.
As far as they said, it seems that way, unfortunately. I don't know if there's any saving a couple of them, but that's for a later determination. I know they'll try their best to save what they can.
Crews opened sections of the street to repair the water main, and steel pipes have been brought in to shore up the sinkhole.
I think it's crazy.
Residents had to find somewhere else to spend the night. J.R. Rosado and his family say they are staying with relatives, but they had to leave part of their family behind.
We're just looking for a place for our pets because we have no place for them now.
Now, as you can see, crews are hard at work. They've been at this all day. The sinkhole was discovered early this morning, consuming a portion of the sidewalk here on 10th Street. Now, PPL and UGI, along with fire crews, city crews, and city inspectors, as well as county inspectors, are going to be out here all night until they can shore up the sinkhole and determine exactly what the situation is with the homes and if residents will be able to go back to those homes. Live in Allentown, Jaccii Farris, 69 News.
Thank you, Jaccii. Crews digging near the sinkhole today may be digging up graves tomorrow.
Dozens of graves at the Union and West End Cemetery are being threatened by that sinkhole. We're going to go live to Will Lewis now. He is at the scene for that story. Will.
Well, Wendy and Rob, that cemetery sits just west of the sinkhole right now. And, you know, many of the grave sites that are in danger date back to the mid-1800s. Some of those people are Civil War veterans, and the Lehigh County Coroner Scott Grimm says because of their age, they could be difficult to move.
Some of the grave markers show people that have been buried at the Union West Cemetery in Allentown for a long time. Lehigh County Coroner Scott Grimm says moving the graves could be dangerous.
It could be very difficult because, one, the ground's still unsettled, it's unsecure. Some of these people have been buried there for 100+ years, so we're working with those conditions as well. The area isn't safe yet either.
You can see how close the sinkhole is to 54 grave sites. The coroner's office has been out taking photos of the markers, and earlier in the day, Lehigh County Judge Brian Johnson toured the site before he agreed to sign a court order to move the graves. Now, with the court order signed, Grimm is wondering how many graves will have to be moved.
It's more or less waiting to see what happens once the sinkhole continues to expand into the cemetery.
Now, in order to get that court order, Scott Grimm and Allentown Fire Chief Robert Schreier had to testify in front of the judge. Then the judge came out and checked out the situation for himself. And Scott Grimm tells us that they may have to move more than those 54 grave sites. Reporting live in Allentown, Will Lewis, 69 News.
All right, thank you, Will. And as we've said, sinkholes are not uncommon here in the Lehigh Valley.
Visiting geologist Mark Sweeney says limestone is the common bedrock of this region. It's fairly soft and erodes easily, leading to natural sinkholes. But sinkholes can also be man-made problems. Sweeney says a burst water main, which may have caused today's sinkhole, can quickly carve out a hole underground. Either way, he says sinkholes are hard to predict. Well, in other news tonight.
On the news at 10, a giant sinkhole and a big mess in an Allentown neighborhood. Dozens of residents have been evacuated as the hole threatens to swallow up houses and imperils dozens of very old graves. Good evening, I'm Rob Vaughn.
And I'm Wendy Davis. The sinkhole opened this morning in the 300 block of North 10th Street in Allentown. Officials say a water main break may be to blame.
Now, a number of people are spending the night elsewhere, their homes unstable, and city officials are trying to determine just how big the sinkhole is and what will happen next. WFMZ's Jaccii Farris starts our coverage tonight.
I'm always worried about this place. I mean, I worried ever since that gas explosion on 13th Street. I worry about them around here. You never know what happens day after day.
It was a scary way to start the day for some residents on Allentown's North 10th Street. A sinkhole swallowed up this sidewalk. Right now, officials believe a water main break is the culprit, whose damage may extend under several homes in the 300 block. Dwayne Glover says he woke up to a flooded basement.
As I'm walking back towards the washer and dryer, my foot went through the concrete floor of the basement.
Glover says he had to kick a door down to get out as the homes started to shift. Huge cracks are now covering many of their interior walls. County engineers are inspecting the homes, but it doesn't look good for at least 3 of them.
As far as they said, it seems that way, unfortunately. I don't know if there's any saving a couple of them, but that's for a later determination. I know they'll try their best to save what they can.
Crews opened sections of the street to repair the water main, and steel pipes have been brought in to shore up the sinkhole.
I think it's crazy.
Residents had to find somewhere else to spend the night. J.R. Rosado and his family say they are staying with relatives, but they had to leave part of their family behind.
We're just looking for a place for our pets because we have no place for them now.
Jaccii Farris, 69 News.
While crews worry about the homes on one side of 10th, others are concentrating on the graveyard across the street.
The historic Union and West End Cemetery is just a few feet from the edge of the sinkhole, and officials say dozens of graves are in jeopardy. WFMZ's Will Lewis is live in the newsroom with that part of our story. Will?
Robin Wendy, many of the affected graves have been at the cemetery since the 1900s. Lehigh County Coroner Scott Grimm says depending on the size of the sinkhole, more graves may be in danger. As construction crews dig up part of 10th Street, they are doing so under the watchful eye of many officials, including Lehigh County Coroner Scott Grimm.
My office was called to respond to this location due to the sinkhole.
The problem facing Grimm is what to do with 54 graves at the Union and West End Cemetery that are in jeopardy of being swallowed up by the earth if the sinkhole gets larger. Moving them is easier said than done.
It could be very difficult because, one, the ground's still unsettled, it's unsecure. Some of these people have been buried there for 100+ years, so we're working with those conditions as well.
Many of the marker stones are so old you can barely make out the names or dates. Others show military service during the Civil War. A judge has signed a court order to move the graves if needed.
Right now, it's more or less waiting to see what happens once the sinkhole continues to expand into the cemetery.
Now, we have tried to contact the president of the Union and West End Cemetery Association. So far, we have not heard a response. Reporting live in the newsroom, Will Lewis, 69 News.
All right, thank you, Will. Be sure to stay with 69 News for continuing coverage of the Allentown sinkhole. We'll have the latest starting tomorrow morning on 69 News at sunrise. WFMZ's Melanie Falcon will have updates then. You can always check our website, WFMZ.com. The repair work has begun on a massive sinkhole on Allentown's 10th Street. It opened up yesterday, a gaping hole, displacing 24 families and jeopardizing a historic graveyard across the street. WFMZ's Jaccii Farris joins us live from North 10th Street in Allentown with the latest. Jaccii.
Well, crews have begun pumping cement into the sinkhole. Residents were allowed to return home, although some of them only briefly. Officials say they had hoped to save most of the homes, but that may not be possible. The digging on 10th Street started when the sun came up. This portion of the sinkhole in the 300 block is estimated to be 36 by 40 feet wide. Early reports indicated a water main break may have been a contributing factor.
What looks like now is the sinkhole may have opened, and then the pipes just under the pressure just automatically collapsed.
By mid-afternoon, cement trucks were pouring in slurry to stabilize the sinkhole, believed to extend under at least 2 homes.
The homes are bad. They're etched. They're leaning in towards each other. All the walls, all the bearing walls have serious cracking issues. Chances are 41 and 43 are not going to survive this incident and will probably have to be torn down.
Most of the displaced residents were allowed to return home today.
It's overwhelming. It's a close-knit block. To see all your neighbors distressed, it's upsetting.
That distress could be seen on the faces of the 7 families who were only allowed home long enough to gather more personal belongings with the help of firefighters.
You try to make a mental list of what's really important. It's just hard to try to do that in such limited time.
Some residents hugged each other in the back alley, while others talked to building inspectors and worried about insurance claims.
It's just crazy. No one would think it would happen to you, but you wake up one morning and you're pretty much living out of bags, you know, whatever you can grab at the time.
Officials say it's going to be a few days before they can figure out exactly when all of the families can return home and the fate of those 2 homes that is now hanging in the balance. Meantime, the fate of the 54 graves across the street at the cemetery is still up in the air. Officials say if they do have to be relocated, they will be put elsewhere in the cemetery. Live in Allentown, Jaccii Farris, 69 News.
All right, thanks, Jaccii. We'll have much more on the sinkhole coming up on 69 News at 6. And WFMZ's Will Lewis will take a look at the history of the cemetery that's in jeopardy. Lehigh County.
That's it.
Good evening once again. I'm Rob Vaughn. Wendy is off tonight. First at 6, a pair of homes may not survive a run-in with a huge sinkhole in Allentown. They are among the homes that had to be evacuated when the massive hole opened up yesterday on North 10th Street. Tonight, some of the displaced residents are back home. Others, not so lucky. We go to WFMZ's Jaccii Farris live at the scene for the latest. Jaccii?
Well, several homes are still off limits. Now the waiting game begins. Who will be able to return home for good, and who will have to say goodbye to their home? Of the 7 10th Street homes still off limits, 2 sustained major damage because of a massive sinkhole.
The floors are actually leaning in towards each other. Both homes are leaning in towards the center, which we realized that yesterday already, too, which told us the void is traveling directly under the center of those 2 homes.
Allentown Fire Chief Robert Shire says 341 and 343 will likely have to be torn down. The chief says there is hope for the remaining 5.
It's tough when you're uncertain what's about to take place, but I'm just trusting God that it'll all work out.
Most of the displaced homeowners were able to return home, but for some, their return was brief, just long enough to grab a few personal belongings.
We're close-knit neighbors, so we're pretty much holding everyone together and being there for each other because that's all we can do right now.
The stress of the day could be seen as they embraced and talked about what might happen next.
I'm waiting now for the inspectors to come and to take me through the home to see if there's any structural damage on the inside.
While residents assembled their belongings in the back alley, out in the front, crews were hard at work repairing the sinkhole.
Take out the street, fill it in with a cement-like material with rocks and rebar on top, and then rebuild the street after that.
Officials say it'll take a couple of days to repair the sinkhole and to get the residents back in their home. It will also take some time to determine the fate of those 2 homes now in question. Live in Allentown, Jaccii Farris, 69 News.
Thanks, Jaccii, for the update. For close-up pictures of the gaping sinkhole, be sure to check out our website, WFMZ.com. We've got a gallery of sinkhole photos taken by Jaccii that will give you an even better perspective on the mess on 10th Street. There's a lot of history to the graveyard that now finds itself under siege from that sinkhole. Some of the people buried at the Union and West End Cemetery were first defenders at the start of the Civil War. WFMZ's Will Lewis joins us live from the cemetery with more. Will?
Hey, you know, Rob, the first person was buried here at the cemetery in 1854. There's also veterans from several historical wars, and the first mayor of Allentown is also buried here as well.
In the mid-1800s, this land was owned by two cemeteries. They were for-profit businesses, that is, until business did too well.
About 1895, they had sold every lot. 2,200 lots, 10 graves to a lot.
So with no more income, the Union and West End Cemetery became a non-profit and a place with a lot of history.
I think one of the most unique things is that we have 714 Civil War veterans buried here in the cemetery. Altogether, we have at least 1,000 veterans of all wars.
Everett Carr, the president of the Cemetery Association, says the only place that has more Civil War veterans buried in one place is the National Cemetery in Gettysburg. One soldier was given a very high honor.
Ignaz Gresser is buried not too far from here, and he is the only Congressional Medal of Honor winner in the Civil War from this area. He's buried, he actually saved an individual that went on to become a state senator.
Speaking of dignitaries, there are a lot of them buried on the grounds as well. 5 U.S. congressmen and even the very first mayor of Allentown.
A gentleman by the name of McHose is buried in this section, and as I say, his great-grandson actually takes care of the section.
Now, there are 54 sites that are being threatened by the sinkhole on 10th Street. Now, Everett Carr says they are still waiting for the engineer's report to see how far that sinkhole comes onto the cemetery or if they can stabilize that land. He says there is an order to exhume those grave sites if it has to, but he is really hoping that they won't have to be moved. Reporting live in Allentown, Will Lewis, 69 News.
Thank you.